Pisa Finai brings back some old memories, as in his brief time on ESPN. He was one of my uncle's favorite fighters. My uncle would say, "This guy's a winger," every time he'd fight. Finai was a power-punching Samoan, and he was a hell of an athlete. He was an all-state football and basketball player at Kahuku High School in Hawaii, the best player on both teams. He was a local legend who made game-winning baskets and touchdowns. He later started in football in college, playing multiple positions for the Brigham Young Cougars. But his professional football aspirations didn't quite work out, and he began training in boxing for the first time in 1980 at 24 years old. With less than 2 years of training, he turned professional. He lost his first fight only to avenge the defeat 4 months later and got some exposure when he competed in Sylvester Stallone's all-heavyweight invitational tournament in Lake Tahoe. Finai then made his ESPN debut in May of 1984, taking on Stan Butler.
Finai has a pretty good right hand. That's what he'll be looking to unload. So does Butler. There's a good right hand, and Butler's hurt.
Butler is wobbly, and Butler is wide open and ready to fall. The big tree is covering up, getting belted with right hands, another one. Finai trying to finish. Big Stan Butler. Butler trying to get the gloves up and trying to weather this barrage. Finai trying to get through the gloves. Look at that right uppercut. Butler is through the ropes. Billy Connolly picks up the count. Butler is up. They'll take the mandatory 8 count. He's virtually out on his feet. His eyes are glassy. I don't know if he can get the gloves up. Here comes Finai to try and finish the job. He's all over Stan Butler.
Long time left in this round, about 30 to 40 seconds. So,
a left hand knockdown. Butler just as Billy Connolly stepped in.
what kind of move was that from the referee?
I can't believe what I just saw. The referee had stepped in, and now he stops the fight.
The network was impressed with Finai and brought him back 4 months later against Gary Lightburn.
He's coming with a left, right, another left, on right. Lightburn is out on his feet as he tries to hang on to try to get composure. That's the Finai we expected.
Right. I mean, I thought that as soon as he heard him, he would revert back to it. And he has tremendous power. And this is what we saw against Butler. When you're a heavyweight, you can punch like that. Forget about boxing. Just go knock him out.
Lightburn's bicycle needs some oil now because he's got to get on it to get away from Finai.
He's getting hit with every wide
Hit right hand, and he is gone. It is over.
Only 2 months after the Lightburn fight, Finai was thrown in against a 27-fight veteran and cruiserweight contender in Michael Greer.
City, 28 years of age, 6-1 with 6 knockouts in his 6-1 record. He comes right out. He wanted to come out, and Ali's told us says about 3 times in a row now, wanted to come out and box a couple of rounds and then start throwing some big punches. But we haven't seen him pass round 1 in his last 2 fights, which have been knockouts over Stan Butler and Gary Lightburn.
Well, against Lightburn, who's normally a boxer type, as Greer is boxing, was a little more aggressive with Finai. And Pisa said today, well, I had to hurt him because he was coming after me.
I might make mention right up front that Mr. Bob Arum of Top Rank Boxing has reportedly offered Jerry Cooney $1 million to fight this guy a little later. What do you think?
Well, I don't know. That stuff happens in boxing all the time. They said it was serious, though. The Top Rank people said they were serious, but they were trying to get Cooney in the ring. And right now, Pisa Finai more concerned with Greer and just landed a good overhand right. I don't know whether Finai's ready for Cooney, but I guess he wouldn't be that much worse than Philip Brown was against Cooney, that's for sure.
You know, when we talked to him about his skills, as you see him attacking here, Michael Greer, he said, hey, I've watched some of the other heavyweights. I don't think their skills are all that much better than mine right now. We haven't seen him box, though. I think that's the big thing, Al.
Yeah, well, we don't know whether he can take him, but we don't know much about Pisa Finai. We know he can hit, and we know that he throws punches from awkward angles, and so far you can't argue with success, but obviously he's going to have to show a little more to the boxing world before they'll take him seriously as a heavyweight.
He, by the way, as Al pointed out in our highlight piece a moment ago, is a former linebacker at BYU out in Provo, actually. Lives in Salt Lake City. Was recruited as a wide receiver. A big wide receiver.
That's for sure. Wow. Michael Greer is a boxer type. He's a fighter at 29 who I guess you'd have to give him the journeyman tag, but he's been in with some good heavyweights. He lost by TKO to Pinklin Thomas, now the WBC champion. Also lost to Jeff Sims by a knockout. Interestingly, I mentioned Brown, I mentioned Philip Brown. He lost to Philip Brown on a decision. Philip, of course, from Lake Charles, Louisiana, one of our favorite top-ranked stops.
So as Michael Greer has been backing up through much of the first round here with Pisa Finai throwing leather. Greer trying to become an opponent, unlike the last two, to survive at least the first round.
Might be a moral victory, huh? And Greer told us that he would take the first couple rounds to see what Finai had and feel him out. And he is using all of this about 18-foot ring to do just that. Some of the crowd not pleased with his strategy.
Our lowest timing you see there, closing in on 20 seconds of round number 1. Heavyweights are set to open the program tonight with 8 rounds.
You mentioned that Greer had a draw with Brown when he fought him, so that was a good feather in his cap.
Pisa Finai, you see that lunging style. Boy, those ropes are awfully loose here. We almost caught both of those heavyweights right in our lap. And there's the bell to end round 1. So Pisa Finai has not put Greer away yet, but round 2 of this last fight was over Mike Rollins, a second-round knockout in Helena, Arkansas in September. Trying to survive what no other fighter, at least in the last few weeks, has done. The first round, he's done that. Now he tries to withstand the punishment here in round 2. Al and I pointed out we have not seen Pisa Finai take some punches. He took a couple of pretty good shots in the corner there from Greer.
Well, Michael Greer showing us he wants to be more than just an opponent for Pisa Finai. Came here to win. He's throwing some good combinations. And I think what he wants to do, Sam, is lure Finai in and land some counter punches on him.
Al, did we ever get a measurement on this ring? We were surmising that it was a little bit larger, possibly 20 to 22 footer.
Now it looks smaller. The ring itself is a little larger, but the ropes are kind of far in, and I think it's about an 18-foot ring, so it's not outrageously big. Michael Greer is talking to Finai.
Absolutely, saying, come on, big fella, throw it. Now the referee, Chuck Hales, says, no, excuse me, that's Leroy Benson, says, come on, you guys fight rather than talking. That is not Mr. Benson. We have 3 referees here tonight. That is Chuck Hale. My apologies to both.
Now, Michael Greer is taunting Finai. Now, personally, I don't think this is such a bad idea by Michael Greer. He wants to get Finai off his game plan. He wants to get Finai angered, maybe walk into a counter punch or whatever. When you're in against a big puncher, if you can psych him like this, I don't think it's such a bad idea. Finai keeping his poise quite well, though, picking his spots.
You saw something we normally have not seen from Finai, just due to the fact he hasn't fought enough rounds for us to see him, but he used a good straight left hand, and now Michael Greer trying to give him some punishment on the ropes, and is doing so. A right hand by Greer sends Finai down. So the Samoan has tasted the canvas for the first time as he goes down under the onslaught of a rather crafty Michael Greer.
Well, maybe we're finding out about Pisa Finai's chin. That was a good straight right hand by Greer, but he's not a big puncher.
Pisa telling the referee, Chuck Hales, that he pushed him, but he did get hit with a right hand, and his nose is bloody.
He got hit with a big right hand. That was a legitimate knockdown, and he's getting ripped with uppercuts on the inside. Finai's in trouble again.
Michael Greer putting on quite a show in round 2 against Pisa Finai, who's 6-1 with 6 knockouts. The last 2 knockouts in the round 1. We wanted to know how Finai could fight. Now we're going to find out, as Michael Greer has given him a test here in round 2 with 30 seconds to go.
Greer doing quite well on the inside. Not really reputed to be a good inside fighter. He's showing us he can fight on the inside. He's covering up well, and the wide punches of Finai, Sam, are not getting there in this fight.
One of the things we had talked about Finai is that he hits from so many different angles. He has hit Greer from a lot of different angles, but he's also caught a lot of punches as they battle here near the end of round 2. Now we're in round 3. Unknown territory for Pisa Finai in his last few fights. Michael Greer, of course, also got a second-round knockout in his last fight. Both have the power, and Greer has already demonstrated that here in this fight in round 2, sending Finai down in round number 2. Michael Greer, by the way, also got a draw, Al, I don't know if you mentioned it earlier, with Richard Scott, who knocked out Andrew Stokes in Indianapolis. Kind of a big surprise. Yeah. Scott knocking out Stokes.
Yeah, Richard Scott, that in beating Stokes, to beat what we thought was a good young heavyweight, and Greer had a draw with him. So that draw with Philip Brown, an indication he can fight with some fairly decent heavyweights.
The Prom Center almost completely packed during the seating area, and they're standing behind all of the seats, watching on as these heavyweights. Pisa Finai fights on. He's on the right. against Michael Greer.
You know, Sam, on the inside, Finai's in more trouble against Greer than he is on the outside. The short punches of Greer are getting in. Finai, with those wide looping punches, can't really hurt him on the inside. Look at that. See, he can't hit him.
Oh, you hit it right on the nose on that uppercut. That had to be the thing that really got Finai into most trouble in round 2.
That's been Greer's real good weapon, and then, of course, he followed with the straight right, but the uppercut was what set that up.
Red Fortner, the trainer-manager of Michael Greer, indicated he was a well-conditioned fighter, which means that he can go the distance, indeed, if they should go the 8th, and so far has fought his fight. He's not letting Finai dictate what he wants to do.
Well, Greer's been 12 rounds. He beat Otis Bates in 1983, over 12. For Finai, oh, good jab by Greer. That stunned Finai. Finai has never been past 6 rounds.
Finai's in trouble. The referee, Chuck Hale's trying to separate him for a standing 8 count. This, again, one of those rules here in Minnesota.
And they give him liberally here. We saw it in a previous fight.
Greer had Finai in all kinds of trouble. And the standing 8 count will let him catch his breath as he'll go to the side corner, and there will be a doctor look at him. Apparently there is now a cut around the left eye.
It doesn't look like it's in a spot where they'd stop. They are going to stop the fight. That's astonishing.
They're stopping it
Wow.
on a cut on the eye.
Well, maybe it's a bad cut.
So
It
Michael
shouldn't look that
Greer
way.
will get it on a cut, and technically a TKO here in the 3rd round. So Pisa Finai, a bright, brilliant future ahead of him, has now been derailed by Michael Greer.
The loss pretty much ended Finai's career. It's a shame because he was so fun to watch. There was no subtlety to his attack. He threw haymaker after haymaker, and he was there to take you out. His is also a case of the importance of a boxer needing an experienced hand to build up a record. He obviously had an unconnected and inexperienced manager, as even though Greer weighed 30 pounds less than Finai, he had too much experience for the still green Samoan. Finai needed an astute manager where he could build up his record against soft touches. Because of his late start in the sport and his tremendous potential with his punching power, he could have put some butts in the seats. So Finai did return to the ring after the loss. He fought 3 times in 1985 before leaving the sport for 5 years. He came back, weighed 35 pounds heavier than he did for his ESPN debut, and he suffered a decision loss to Conroy Nelson. Finai left the sport for good and became a freight agent for American Airlines.